How many minds do we have? Psychologists, neurologists, and philosophers have classified the human mind into different domains. Buddhism suggests another understanding of mind. According to the teachings of the Buddha, every one of us has 8 minds, and they are called the 8 consciousnesses in Buddhist scriptures. Consciousness is defined as the function of awareness and discernment. The eye consciousness differentiates colors and visual objects. The ear consciousness differentiates sounds. The nose consciousness differentiates odors. The tongue consciousness differentiates flavors. The body consciousness differentiates physical sensations. The mental consciousness has a variety of functions, such as deliberation, inference, and abstract thinking. It also receives and analyzes all the information collected by the 5 sense consciousnesses. Most of us have not heard of the 7th consciousness. In Buddhism, it's called the Manas consciousness. The Manas consciousness makes decisions and gives orders. In everyday life, it is this mind that decides one should walk, eat, etc. But since the way it works is rather subtle, we usually are unaware of its presence. The 8th consciousness is known in Buddhism as the Alaya consciousness, the foundational consciousness, or the Buddha essence. It is like a powerful video recorder that records everything we do, yet we are totally oblivious to its existence. In summary, the first 6 consciousnesses perceives and distinguish what is going on around us. The 7th consciousness decides and gives orders regarding everything at all times. The 8th consciousness impartially records and stores an individual's every single action. If the body and mind were thought of as a huge corporation, these 8 consciousnesses would be sort of like the CEO, general manager, supervisor, and staffs, who run its operation so we can live a normal life in this world. Before the Buddha appeared, humans were not aware of the 8 consciousnesses. The general public and most religions believe that our thinking mind, the mental consciousness, is our soul and it can continue on after we die. But the Buddha made it clear in his teachings that the mental consciousness is not eternal. It disappears when we fall asleep and cannot move on to future lives. The Buddha essence is the only one that can exist forever. It will impartially and accurately manifest the form of existence. We should take in the next life according to our karmic records, such as being reborn to either good or bad destinies. In fact, every sentient being has its own Buddha essence that creates the body and mind. As for the physical world, such as the mountains, oceans, and even the entire universe, it is created collectively by the Buddha essence of karmically related sentient beings. You may think of the Buddha essence as an invisible magician. The Buddha taught us about the Buddha essence because he wanted us to understand the ultimate reality of our existence, so that we can free ourselves from miseries and sufferings. When we have found the Buddha essence, we can gradually unlock the miraculous power it possesses. Eventually, we can even acquire the complete and perfect enlightenment of a Buddha, and we will be able to take full control of our lives just like the Buddha. Following is a poem that summarizes these 8 wondrous minds. 8 brothers live under one roof. One is sharp, one is dim, 5 do business out front, and the last one keeps tabs on everything. Written based on Xuanzang's doctrinal expositions, the 8 Wondrous Minds is meant to introduce the Buddhist doctrine of 8 consciousnesses. The 8th consciousness is the central and foundational Buddhist tenet and the permanent true mind Buddhist disciples seek awakening to. In Buddhist scriptures, it is also called the maturational consciousness, the immaculate consciousness, and the Tahagartagarbha. Chan Buddhism refers to it as one's original face before birth, one's native scenery, no mind, the mind that does not see, hear, feel, or know, the true mind, the diamond mind, Buddha, Dharma, etc. In Chinese history, Xuanzang was one of the most illustrious Buddhist masters, who attained awakening to the 8th consciousness in his teens. In order to learn about the post-awakening cultivation stages toward the Buddhahood, he took a perilous journey to India to see the original scriptures that shed light on this subject. One of the key Sanskrit texts he sought was the treatise on the stages of yogic practice. During his stay in India, King Harsha invited Xuanzang to host a public religious debate. With his remarkable eloquence, Xuanzang won the debate and made his name known throughout the 5 Indian kingdoms. He was honored as the deity of liberation, and the deity of Mahayana ultimate truth by Buddhists and heretics alike. Having acquired penetrative insights into Buddhist doctrines, after his return to China, Xuanzang translated an enormous amount of Sanskrit scriptures into Chinese and authored the Chengwei Shilun and the verses delineating the 8 consciousnesses. To articulate the self-nature of the 8 consciousnesses. His profound and eloquent expositions continue to be read with admiration to this day. Xuanzang was not the only practitioner in Chinese Buddhist history to have awakened to the 8th consciousness. The patriarchs of Chinese Chan also attained the same awakening. Bodhidharma affirmed the second Chan patriarch, Huike's awakening with the Lakavatara Sutra. The 5th patriarch, Hongren, verified the 6th patriarch, Huinen's awakening with the Diamond Sutra. Upon which Huinen exclaimed, "Who could have thought that the self-nature is intrinsically uncreated and unceasing? Who could have thought that the self-nature can give rise to all phenomena?" In the Song dynasty, Chan master Da Hui Zonggao and Hongzhi Zhengjue began to teach the Dharma after attaining direct realization of the 8th consciousness. They respectively advocated the method of Kanhua Chan and Mo Zhao Chan. The 2 masters became lifelong friends because of having achieved awakening to the 8th consciousness. The 2 great masters of the Zhenan school in Tibet, Dopopa Sherab Yeltsin and Taranatha, also attained awakening to the 8th consciousness. Based upon their realizations, Dopopa expounded the doctrine of other emptiness in his influential exposition, Mountain Doctrine, while Taranatha discoursed on the same subject in his work, Essence of Other Emptiness, among many others. In contrast to the uncreated and unceasing 8th consciousness, the mental consciousness is a phenomenon with origination and cessation. The mental consciousness will cease during deep sleep, fainting, and absorption of non-perception, the absorption of cessation, and complete death. the mental consciousness does not come from a previous life and cannot persist to future lives. The sixth consciousness can only arise from the eighth consciousness in dependence on two necessary conditions: the seventh consciousness and the mental objects. These properties of the mental consciousness were affirmed by Bouddha Sakyamuni and can be directly perceived by all enlightened persons. Moreover, the thoughtless and numinous awareness attained during sitting meditation is the state of the mental consciousness. Likewise, the union of bliss and emptiness realized during the sexual yoga practiced by Tibetan lamas is also a state of the mental consciousness. Beyond the fact the sixth consciousness can only arise from the eighth consciousness in dependence on the seventh consciousness and the mental objects. The seventh consciousness and the mental objects also arise from the eighth consciousness. In short, the mind that Buddhist practitioners seek awakening to is the eighth consciousness, not the sixth consciousness. For this reason, those who refute the doctrine of eight consciousnesses and believe only in the existence of six consciousnesses can never achieve enlightenment within the three vehicles of Buddhist cultivation.